Hey guys, welcome back to Castle Combat TV, and in this video, I will be ranking my top 10 least favorite cards, so this is the sequel from my last video. So moving on to number 10, it is any card that requires you to eat food or bring food to your battle. So the reason why I don't like this is because food and Castle Combat don't really go well together. If you're eating, it's not really ideal because you have to have 3 cards in your hand. You're gonna have to be putting your cards down. It's just really inefficient. And if you're eating like chips or something, you can get your greasy hands all over the cards, the dice, and just ruin the card in general. So if I want to play Castle Combat, I don't want to have to bring a bunch of candy or have to be eating pizza and stuff. Moving on to number 9, it is King Crimson. So King Crimson, a very good card. Red Razor, sharpest sword ever, roll 2 dice, choose the highest, 6, auto win the battle, double 6s, remove foe from game. If defeated, roll a die on a 4 or higher, go to winners. But he was Sir Crimson, and I think Sir Crimson was balanced, but just giving him the shield and removing the double 1s just made him way too good. It's a little late to nerf him because he's been the same for so long, so he will not get nerfed. You have to negate him. If you don't negate him, you are in for one rough battle. And I use Romulus, and King Crimson has a rivalry with him. So if King Crimson and Romulus are in the same epic battle, they will battle each other 99% of the time, and King Crimson will win 99% of the time because it's a big showdown, and King Crimson only has to roll 1/6 to auto with the battle. And if you have the shiny King Crimson on a 4 or higher, it doesn't go to bottom of the deck, it actually rematches. So I think that's a little better because you survive one battle, and on a 50-50, you have to fight King Crimson again and deal with the Red Razor all over again, and 50-50 is actually pretty high in Castle Combat. Moving on to number 8, it is King Kemp, the Power 3 King Kemp. So before battle, roll a die, deduct that many power points from your foe's power, can't go below 0. Roll a die if you lose on a 3 or higher, go to winners. But this card, back in Kid Rum Loudon, it was really strong. People would use this card with like the purple good guy, so like red and purple, on top of like the Amethyst twin team up, the Grail, Prince Morgan, all that. This card was just so hard to deal with. As a 3, it was way too overpowered. It stayed around for most of the summer, and it wasn't nerfed until like October, but this King Kemp was way too good, and it was just very annoying because I would use Odin King, and this King Kemp would bring my Power 5 Odin King all the way down to like a 2, and this King Kemp would have advantage. So King Kemp, don't really like this card. Moving on to number 7, it is Cosmos, the 5th Star-Lord. Epic battle. Before battle, you can add 2 or subtract 2 from your power. These abilities can't be negated. The reason why Cosmos is on this list is because he's extremely overrated. I know he can become a 2 or a 6, and that means he's pretty versatile, but he doesn't excel at beating lowest total or beating highest total. Like a 6 that has no in-battle ability actually loses a lot more than you think. So it's kind of like a jack of all trades. It can fight almost anything, but it doesn't really counter anything. And Cosmos, he's a Star-Lord. You would think he would be a lot stronger. Maybe he would be a 5 that can reduce to a 3 or increase to a 7, or maybe a 4 but add 3 or subtract 3, becoming a 1 or a 7, and would put him in the same ballpark as like Jade and Shroud. Moving on to number 6, it is the Amethyst twins. So the Amethyst twins, team up 1 good night, power score cannot go over 7, double trouble. It's basically 2 war horses in one because 1 war horse is power 1, and they team up with 1 good night. And this is just any good night. It doesn't have to be like purple, which I think it should be. So if you guys aren't familiar with the meta, like 3 or 4 years ago, it was purple and red. I've said this so many times in videos because it was a very broken team up. Amethyst twins, power 2 starter deck Grail, and Prince Morgan becoming a 9 that can go over 7 because of the Grail. And not only that, the Grail could be recycled in a deck. And that was before the huge treasure card nerf. And keep in mind, that was when team up was actually a legitimate strategy. You don't see team ups nowadays. You mainly see epic battles, trading places, and like elemental healing. That's what you see now, but back then, team ups were everything. Moving on to number 5, it is Grendel. So Grendel, the most iconic card in the game, serial number 1, and he's on every Castle Combat card or anything that has to do with Castle Combat because this is Grendel. He's on the back of every Castle Combat card, including the Kid Rum backs, white backs, and I do have a poster right here. And look, he is right here. So he is everywhere. And with a card of that caliber, with the serial number 1, you would expect this card to be one of the best cards in the game, but sadly, it is not. I don't even think it would make a top 100 list, because if you use Grendel, you can't use Fail Frostbite because they have a rivalry. And Grendel, he's also the leader of one of the most boring factions in all of Castle Combat, and that is the Goblins. And a matter of fact, Grendel is not even the strongest in his own faction, and that goes to his bodyguard, Cold Club. There's no real reason to use Grendel because Fail Frostbite is just a better option in every way. And also his quote says the most powerful of all the dragons. That is just not true. Onyx is the strongest overall. In one-on-one, Grendel is matched by Thermal the Magnificent, and Thermal the Magnificent is just a better option because it has the epic battle, and the red bad guys are just better than the blue bad guys because like Sir Inferno, you have like Combustion, Fire Dogs, all that. Just Grendel, very underwhelming. Moving on to number 4, it is Feral Frostbite. So before battle, you can decrease your power to 3. If you win, bring back 1 warrior with 5 or less power from dungeon to bottom of the deck. The reason why I don't like this card is because, first of all, it's hard to fight against. Otho doesn't even fully counter it. Otho, you get a slight advantage because Otho is a 6 that rerolls 1s. This Feral Frostbite is very hard to beat. Lowest total doesn't really counter it unless you have like Aurora. And even with that, Feral Frostbite has a fighting chance. It just causes so much conflict when building a bad guy deck, because if you want to use Feral Frostbite, you have to check for rivalries because a lot of bad guys hate Feral Frostbite and a lot of good guys too. Really easy to bring back, especially with the Ice Liches. His Undead faction isn't that good. If you want to use Undead, just use the purple bad guys. Moving on to number 3, it is the Bog Lord. So a very, very popular card and one of the easiest cards to get and use. So the reason why I don't like this card is obviously because of its ability. So epic battle, Bogs, before battle will die. If you roll equal or higher than your foe's power, then they auto lose the battle. You can reroll 1. Bog Lord is also one of the most well-known cards in Castle Combat, and the reason why I don't like him is because you can do everything right and you can still lose. So let's say I put like a 6 against Bog Lord, I can't do any better than that, and Bog Lord just rolls a 6, and you just feel like you couldn't do anything about it. And that is one thing I don't like about Castle Combat. You are at the mercy of a die, and no matter how like good you are or how much you know about the game to get good matchups, you can still lose because of something that you can't control, which I don't really like. Now moving on to number 2, it is a tie between Crazy 8 and Sylvan. So these two cards are ranked high because, first of all, they make the battles super boring. They kind of auto-negate your foe's in-battle ability. So Sylvan will then wildcard. Your opponent doesn't roll a die. You roll 3. You choose 1, then they choose 1. I know I said I wouldn't have fan-made cards, but I have not met the person who has made Sylvan. So if they're watching this video, your card's annoying. So in Crazy 8, same story. Do not roll dice. Your battle score is 8. Starting with you, take turns rolling 2 dice. You can reroll 1s. Whoever rolls 8 first wins that round. This ability can't be negated. So Crazy 8 technically is the best card in the game because Crazy 8 has advantage against any card in the game because, first of all, he's an 8, so he's safe from Shroud and Evil Snowmen. And if he plays against a common, just stay in 8 and you already have an advantage. Whenever I film gauntlets, it just makes the battle really boring because in gauntlets, you want to see different abilities face each other, and these cards just auto-negate it. Crazy, it takes forever for someone to roll an 8, and if it's a big showdown, you got to roll it multiple times because this one's only auto-win round. If you ever play me with an elf deck, just use this card because it just throws all skill or all like knowledge about the game out the window, and it's just all luck at that point. Now moving on to my least favorite card in Castle Combat. If you guys have talked to me at camp and had me talk about this card, you guys know what card this is because it hasn't been on this list yet. It is the one, the only, the Shroud. So the Shroud, I don't know where to start with this card. Let's just start off with the ability. So epic battle, the Shroud. Before battle, roll a die before your foe, even if it's vanquished. If you roll equal or higher than your foe's power, they're removed from game. If not, then battle is normal. If Shroud loses battle, he is removed from game. This ability cannot be negated. So yeah, I don't have to say much about that. So I'm going to start off with the rarity. I believe over 10 Shrouds were printed, which is a lot. And the reason why I don't like Shroud is the same reason with the Bog Lord. You cannot do anything against it. You are completely helpless and just have to hold your breath. And not only that, the Shroud is the hardest card to prepare for in Castle Combat. There is almost no countering it because it always goes first. I know you can throw it against a 5 or 6, but the Shroud still has a chance because it's equal or higher. And equal or higher is just so strong. It's not the fact that it can auto beat 1s. It's the fact that it has a chance to take out your 6s, like Andromeda, your Onyxes. And rolling a 5 or higher isn't that hard because you have a 33% chance of losing one of your strong 5s from the game completely, like Romulus, Otho the Owl, Prince Morgan. You will lose those cards and you can't do anything about it. But I do know Shroud does get removed from game if he loses, but whenever you put Shroud in a deck, you're not expecting him to survive the entire game. You're expecting him to remove a couple cards and then lose. But when Shroud does get removed, all you're losing is a power 4 epic battle. That's all you lose. So it's not really high risk, high reward. It's more like highest reward and medium risk. All in all, the Shroud is the scariest card in Castle Combat. So if I made a top 10 scariest Castle Combat card video, Shroud would be number 1 because He just makes you pay. Getting removed from game is literally the worst thing that can happen to a card in Castle Combat, because it's so hard to get those back, and there's only a handful of cards that can swap from removed from game. So there's no card that can actually heal. Like if you win battle, bring back one card removed from game. That will never happen. There are only going to be cards that can swap. And that is it for my top 10 least favorite card video. If you use or like any of these cards and got offended by the video, just keep in mind it's my opinion. Obviously what I say isn't 100% true. That's basically it for today's video. Make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.